Kelvin Davis.
And I'd like to thank the Minister for that, because we do get it. We do get this is about our biosecurity, about protecting our agricultural interests, but there's a few things that we don't get. One of the things we don't get is why were there cuts to the biosecurity 4 or 5 years ago? Why were 54 staff members, biosecurity staff members, cut 4 or 5 years ago? This is just a replacement, this tax, and it is a tax. And let me tell you why I know it's a tax, not aside from the Oxford Dictionary saying a tax is a levy and a levy is a tax, and the Collins Dictionary. I also checked the Māori Dictionary, and the Māori Dictionary says that a levy is a tax, and if us Māoris say it, well then it must be true. So that's what we don't understand, is why were there cuts 5 years ago, and now this is happening, and all of a sudden it's really important that we get more tax to replace those services that were lost. I have a few questions, and they stem from some of the comments made from the National Party members during the second reading. One was from Ian McKelvey. He said, this won't put an impost on those who can afford to pay it. I'm not sure what that means. If people can't afford to pay it, of course it's going to be an impost. I'd like the National Party to explain exactly what that was meant to mean. Another question I have is, how much will this cost to administer? So if it's going to cost $6 to fly out of New Zealand, how much of that $6 is actually going to go into administration of it? Now, if I can just go to the police vetting bill that the Law and Order Select Committee is talking about, one of the concerns of submitters there, of the $7 fee for police vetting, is that most of that $7 is actually going to be used to administer it. So that's a question I have for the Minister. Exactly how much of that $6 to go out of New Zealand is going to be used up in administration? Now, if the threat, biosecurity threat comes from tourists coming into New Zealand, then why don't you just allow or exempt New Zealanders flying out? New Zealanders flying out of New Zealand don't pose a biosecurity threat to New Zealand. Sure, when they come back in, I can understand that they may bring an apple or something in, such as my wife did when she came back from Australia one day, and it cost us $400. However, but I've also got a few questions based around Part 140AB, the contents of border processing levy order, and it's around the word may. It says a levy order under section 140AA may. It may, so it's not saying it will, it's just saying it may prescribe different rates of a levy, or it may not, on a differential basis for different persons or different classes of persons. Now that's really unclear. First of all, that it says may and not will or should or must. It says it may. But what is a different class of person? I'm really not quite sure what that means, and I'd like the Minister to explain that. Or for different persons, why would one person over the other be granted, be prescribed different rates? It says it may prescribe a maximum rate or maximum rate of levy. So may or may not. That's still unclear. It says it will provide subject to such conditions as may be prescribed for extensions of time for the payment of the levy. Will there be extensions of time for the payment of this levy or not? What's going to happen to people if they need to have an extension of time? That's unclear. It will provide for the payment of additional or increased levy in the event of late payment or non-payment. So will there be increased levies if people don't pay if there's non-payment of the levy or the tax? Provide for circumstances, it may provide for circumstances in which the levy paid may be refunded. Now, what are those circumstances that the levy may be refunded? We've got no idea. It's very unclear as to what the circumstances may be that the levy would be refunded, and to who to, under what conditions. It would be good for the Minister to explain that to the House. And it may require that levy funds payable be held on trust in separate accounts. It may require that levy funds payable, Mr Chair, be held on trust in separate accounts? I think, well, I'd like to know the answers to those questions. I'd like to have those issues cleared up. This word may or must, it says may in the legislation. Should it be must or not? So there's just a few questions just to add to the debate, Mr Chair, that I'd like the Minister to clarify for the House. Kia ora.